Hey everybody! Once again, Nate Swick here from the ABA. I'm joined by Greg Neise, my colleague here at the American Birding Association, and we are going to do some live bird identification like we have in the past
Hey
every
everybody, once
Friday at
again,
1 o'clock. I've got
Nate Swick
something
here from
on right now that I need to hear
ABA.
off. Or is that you, Greg?
That's me. I turned it off.
All right, so we're good now. We're good now. So if you have any questions about bird ID, bird anything, please let us know in the comments. We're live here on YouTube. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook, and we're keeping track of all those to make sure that you guys can answer. We don't miss any of your questions. So let us know. We've also got some kind of cool images that have been thrown up to What's This Bird recently that we're going to talk about. Some tough ones, some easier ones, some things that you're probably seeing around right now. But before we get started with that, Greg, another week. How you doing? How's things? How's spring progressing in Illinois?
I have no idea. I don't think I've seen actual sunlight in about 80 or 90 hours.
Nice. Well,
We
that is the socially responsible thing to do.
well, there's that. But the amount of people using the internet this week has just made my life as web developer for the ABA particularly challenging.
We've had a lot of
Just
stuff going on these days.
we've
It
got
seems.
we've got a lot of stuff going on, but the amount of traffic and just sheer volume has caused all kinds of little glitches and hitches and hiccups and everything else. But
Yeah.
anyways, I think we're on the other side of that.
Hopefully,
Uh,
hopefully.
yeah, yeah. Um, Birdwise, it's kind of we had a little push. There was a little warm weather. I forget what day it was early this week. I think we had a day with some very strong, warm southwest winds. It got up to almost 70 degrees.
Yeah.
And I sat outside in the evening. And I'm about 8 miles from Lake Michigan, west of downtown Chicago. And I've got the a river to the west of me, and birds will fly up the river. And as in the evening, they'll see the lake and they'll see all the green of the lakefront, and they'll fly over towards the lake. And there's also gulls that will work the dumps during the day and then
Mm-hmm.
spend the night floating out on the lake, and other birds follow them. So, anyways, long story short, I had about 12 or 13 species of birds just sitting in my little tiny 20 by 20 backyard,
Wow.
um, including a soaring double crested cormorant that had me really excited for a few minutes. Um,
Yeah.
and
Speaking of exciting cormorants, down here in North
yes,
Carolina, we had the first real challenge to our attempts to get the birding community on the same page as far as social distancing when a neotropic cormorant was seen at Jordan Lake, which is over towards Raleigh. It's a first state record, so obviously a lot of people are going to go chase it. A lot of people are going to go look for it. It is in a place where a lot of people live, so it's a 20-minute drive for most people in the area. And boy, I haven't gone out and seen it, but I have some friends that have gone out there, and I hope that everyone is being responsible with regard to social distancing protocols. Fortunately, it's at like a marina, kind of a very big area, so people can set up scopes and look at the cormorant flock without getting close to each other or anything like that. So I think if there is a bird like that that's going to show up, this is a good place for it to do so, so everyone can see it and still be responsible.
yeah. The weather forecast for the Midwest and Great Lakes, and going up into the east, the North Atlantic and the north part of the Mid Atlantic, um, is a big system, like a big cyclonic system coming up
Yeah.
from the southwest, bringing warm temperatures and rains and storms and all of that. But that typically in the middle of April is when the first really exciting western vagrants
Yep.
show up. And we've already seen like in Indiana a vermilion flycatcher a week ago or so, and but yeah, there'll be and a
Yep.
white
Yep.
winged dove today in New England, I think.
Burrowing owl in Maryland.
Yeah, but I think in the next week or so, there's going to be more white-winged doves, more
Yeah.
flycatchers, sage phoebes, things like that
Neotropic
popping up.
cormorants.
Western tanagers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
And that makes sense. We've had a ton of wind here in the last few days, so there's been a lot. It's been very windy, very sunny. it's been sunny, but with kind of a brisk wind coming from the west. So yeah,
And
a lot of birds moving.
and the first big rush of broad-winged hawks are due, and
We don't talk about broadwing hawks.
they'll ride this up.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So before we get going, we got a couple questions in the comments that we'll go ahead and go ahead and take a look at. Ralph Yoder asks, and I apologize, I don't know if I can answer this question. Maybe you can, Greg. What plants can you grow around a brushy area to keep it safe for nesting birds with regard to neighborhood cats? Any suggestions there? Neighborhood cats are a frequent problem for a lot of people in suburban and urban areas. And one of the reasons I don't have bird feeders at my house.
Yeah, I'm not going to touch that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you can do.
That's a radioactive question. I'm not going to touch that.
Sorry, Ralph. I don't know if there's anything we can help on that one.
Cats belong indoors, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. Roger Hoffman has a question. He asks, are there any other Facebook resources for bird ideas that aren't resolved on What's This Bird? We're actually going to talk a little bit about that later. There is one. Greg, do you want to talk about Advanced Bird ID?
There's a couple. Yeah, there's Advanced Bird ID, which generally, if we get something on What's This Bird, and it's we have a bunch of really skilled birders on What's This Bird. It's been been really a wonderful thing to watch over the years that we've been running that group, because when we started, it was me and you and Jeff and a few other ABA people that were basically answering all the questions.
Yeah.
And now it's other members. So we've got people like David Sibley and Alvaro Jaramillo and
Ken Kaufman.
Ken Kaufman, Chris Banish. I mean, all kinds of really top level birders coming in and helping people with some fairly basic bird IDs that can be difficult. And I'm kind of relegated to just sitting back and making sure everything's running smoothly. I chime in occasionally.
Very nice. Yeah.
And we have some incredible volunteer moderators that kind of watch the influx of new people, make sure nobody's spamming or anything like that. Thank you to all of you.
Volunteer moderators. You guys make it work.
And so yeah, it's the way it works is really neat. But if something needs to get run up the chain of command, there's another group, Advanced Bird ID, that's very strictly curated, and that if it can't be ID'd there, then basically it can't be ID. It can't be identified from the photos that are present.
Yeah, it sometimes takes a little longer for you to get the ID because it is a very strictly curated group. But you will usually get some really good people weighing in on it, and as Greg said, if they can't ID it there, it's probably not.
And the thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. But the neat thing about that group is that it functions like a state or even our own ABA checklist committee, rare bird committee. There's a lot of back and forth discussion, a lot of really good opinions, and then generally it like, okay, yeah, you're right on that, and it's always a great learning experience. Another group is the North American Gulls group, run by Amar Ayash. Same thing as with the Advanced ID group, except it's specifically for gulls, and that is a fantastic resource. To learn about identifying gulls.
Yeah. Yep. I would second both of those groups. They're both. I frequently don't weigh in on those, but they are almost always really interesting. You'll learn a lot in those groups as well.
And one thing I have in the works, just to give a little teaser, for the ABA website, a new resource I'm working on is a catalog of birding groups on Facebook. So you can find your local, state or whatever, and ID groups and everything, like down to even, bluebird boxes and things like that.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question, Roger. Check those groups out, and you'll find a lot of really helpful people. think they tend to move a little bit slower than What's This Bird. Sometimes What's This Bird can go so fast, like from like you post a photo on it, and then 5 minutes later it's way down at the bottom. So
Yeah.
we try to control that, but that's it's a busy group. It's a very useful group, but it does have its limitations, and that's definitely one of them. So let's throw up some bird images that have been thrown on What's This Bird recently. What do you say, Greg?
Go ahead.
With the first one. This one does not have a date. It was posted like maybe 20 minutes ago. I just grabbed it because this is a bird that a lot of people are seeing. It's pretty active this time of year, and it's frequently an extremely confusing bird, especially to those of us in the eastern part of the continent, because they can have so many looks. But when I'm looking at this bird, I am seeing that kind of burnished gold all over. I'm seeing the wing bars, although in this picture they are not super prominent. And it's just kind of a short-tailed, big-headed, very chunky warbler. It's a warbler, you can tell because of it's got that kind of thin bill. And this is a pine warbler.
And the only thing I'll point out, beyond what you pointed out, is you'll notice that at the side of the neck, the yellow is paler. It's got almost like a little collar or shawl marking of yellow going up the side of the neck, and that's not an artifact. That's actually a thing on pine warblers, and the males like this one don't show it as frequently like that. But it's always there, and on females and young birds, if you can see that, that is a mark that is unique to two of our warblers, pine warbler and Cape May. Have that yellow right here on the side of the neck. Or just paler. It can be pale green. It's just paler.
Yeah, and pine warbler is one of those birds that, especially in the southeast, it's a warbler that will frequently come to suet feeders. So they'll be active visitors to your feeder, and people always get confused because I don't know what it is about this species, but field guides never really get it right. Especially these like kind of adult males that are so golden. I don't know that any field guides really get that color perfect. And then you add into the fact that there are so many different variations on this sort of pine warbler theme, all the way down to really drab first-year females that are just kind of maybe an olivey all over where this bird is yellow. They can be kind of difficult, but there's a lot of them right now. They're singing, around where I live. They start singing as early as late February, so you start noticing them a lot more. So it's definitely a bird that if you live in the southeast or the eastern part of the continent, you will see quite often if you're looking for it. So Goose Pearson asks a question: what are some good apps to learn bird songs and sounds? I know that you've got a favorite, Greg.
Oh, I've got a favorite. It's the very, very best, hands down. It's called Larkwire, Larkwire, and it's a game. And you use it on your phone, on your smartphone. I believe it's only iOS, or at least it was. I don't know if they've got an Android version of it yet.
Yeah, I'm iOS, so I couldn't say.
But it's really neat. It takes similar bird songs. So let's say, I don't know if it's 4 or 8 at a time, high sippy warblers, and puts them all together, and you listen to it and you have to guess which one it is, and you keep going round and round and round until you get them right. And in the process of doing that, you really learn the difference between them.
The one that nailed, I have Larkwire as well, and I do not hesitate to recommend it as well. It's a great app. It's a great idea, and the robin-like warbles, like the summer tanager, scarlet tanager, rose-breasted grosbeak, and in the western black-headed grosbeak and western tanager. Boy, that is a tough one. That one gets me all the time. It's a really difficult. Those are really difficult species pairs, but it does as well as anything to help you learn that. And as Kyla Yuza says, it doesn't look like it's available on Android. That is a shame. It should be. If anyone knows the Larkwire developers, they should put it on Android too. Well, let's go back to another What's This Bird image. This is another one that we have seen. People are probably going to see a lot of right now. It's let's start at the top. This is a sparrow, little, streaky, mostly brown and tan, little bit of yellow up there between the eye and the bill. That area is called the lore, if you're familiar with bird topography. And what else are we looking for on this bird, Greg?
Well, the thing that jumps out is that the supercilium. So, I mean, we can see that the lore has a little bit of yellow and it has a little pink bill. So really that and just the overall paleness of this bird identifies it as a Savannah sparrow.
That's right.
But you'll also notice that the malar, which is the feathering that comes off the bill, sort of like a mustache along the jawline, and the supercilium, which is the eyebrow, are basically the same tone and color. They're essentially white.
Yeah.
And in a song sparrow, they are not. The song sparrow, the malar, is kind of a buffy. It varies, but the supercilium is gray, and that is a very quick and easy way to tell song sparrow from Savannah when the Savannah doesn't have the obvious yellow lore, which it often does not.
Yeah, this one's a little on the pale side as well. Another couple things that I look for when I'm looking at Savannah versus song, and those are the two kind of confusion species. They're very different shapes. So Savannah sparrow is a very long-bodied sparrow with kind of a short tail, and song sparrow, if you've ever flushed one, you see it's relatively short-bodied with a real long tail. And when a song sparrow flushes, it looks like it drags that tail along behind it, like it's a problem. So you see a song sparrow flush, and it's like it's dragging that tail along behind it. It's very difficult to do so. So Savannah sparrows are short-tailed. When they take off, they just boom, they take off. They do not have any sort of hesitation. They're very fast flyers, and you frequently see them in different places as well.
And one other sparrow that can sort of get in there as well is Vesper, which is
that's a good one as well. Yeah.
A bird that confuses a lot of people, and one of the main reasons for that is Vesper is a species that only molts once a year, unlike most of its closer relatives. And the plumage wears down and looks like three different types of birds over the course of the year. And when they're fresh, they're very bold, streaky birds that are pretty much unmistakable. But then when they get worn down, they start looking like all kinds of things. But in pretty much all plumages, it's got a very noticeable eye ring, anywhere from noticeable to downright bold.
Yeah.
And the supercilium is really indistinct. It's just it just kind of blends in with the top part of the face. It makes
the face look very plain, like a field sparrow.
Exactly.
Almost. Yeah.
And it makes the eye ring stand out and the malar stand out, and it makes the whole kind of face look framed, sort of, in a way that this bird does not.
Yeah, this one has a very busy face, a lot going on between the cheek and the supercilium, the eyebrow, as you say, Greg. And also, I frequently see song sparrows and Savannah sparrows in different places. Savannah sparrows really like short grass, and song sparrows are going to be in much more brushier habitats. But Savannah and Vesper are going to be in similar places frequently, so that can be a difficult ID. But as you say,
this time of the year, they can be anywhere.
That's a good point. That is also a good point. And Zach Schwartz-Weinstein says that note the pink bill, pink legs and bill, which is another thing that Savannah sparrow has that song sparrow does not have if you see them. So thanks for that. Let's go on to the next one. Let's do shorebirds. A lot of shorebirds moving around right now. And boy, I messed this up. Hold on. Let me take this double weird thing away.
That's all right. We can see it's Cape May, New Jersey.
Cape May, New Jersey. There you go. I fixed it. All right. So Cape May, New Jersey, in April, just a couple days ago. Well, I mean, there's one field mark on this bird that is extremely obvious that should make it pretty clear what it is. the
Yeah,
yellow legs.
I was gonna say the black
Oh,
primaries.
see, I'm even going more basic than
No,
that.
no. No, of course it's the yellow legs. And it's a yellow legs, but which yellow legs?
Right. So on this one, so what I'm looking for when I'm looking at yellow legs is that bill. Man, that is a thick based bill. It is pretty long. You're gonna tell me I'm wrong on this one because of the angle, but this feels like a greater yellow legs to me. What do you think, Greg?
Well, the angle is what makes this difficult. My first impression seeing this bird is lesser yellow legs, but
Oh,
first but as we're
yeah,
going to discuss later, first impressions of single photographs can be extremely misleading.
yeah. And I can't
And
recall whether there was another photograph of this bird or not. I think this may have been the only one. I can scroll back into the What's This Bird group and have a look and see where I pulled it. Oh, there it is. What did people decide on this one? No one decided. So the person who posted it, Dennis Flanagan, asks, "Is this a greater or yes or lesser yellow legs?" And then the first person says yes.
see it's hard to tell from the angle. It seems like the angle is foreshortening the bill just a little
I
bit.
could see that. Yeah.
Um, and it's not an obvious grader, but the bill
No.
looks to me to be a little too heavy for a lesser. Um, a lesser looks just kind of it looks a little more delicate than this bird.
I agree. And
Um,
you know the legs here look awfully thick. The body looks awfully full. As you say, you know, lesser gives the impression of an extremely dainty bird with a little
yeah,
like needle bill. Which is why I go
and
on
there
greater in this one, but I would like to see another photo of
and there is
these.
a bit of difference between male and female in terms of size and
Exactly.
build, and
Yeah.
if the females tend to be larger um, and have longer bills.
Yeah. But they're both moving right now. So
Yeah, but I mean,
they're both equally
you
likely.
know, I would like to see another picture of this bird at a different angle to call it for certain, but the build, the just the heftiness of the bill has me leaning greater,
Yeah.
and
Robert.
as you said, just the overall heftiness of it.
Yeah. Robert Mulvihill. I apologize for butchering your name, Robert, if I did so. Suggests that the early date might suggest one yellow legs more than the other, and I think that's accurate. Yeah, and if I knew more about status and distribution in southern New Jersey, I would probably have more to say about that. But
Well,
I'm
around here, graders tend to show up first.
Yeah, yeah, and they tend to overwinter even as far as down here, so
Yeah.
more often than lessers. Yeah, so tentative grader on this bird. Let's move on to the next one. This one's a little
Yep.
easier.
Yep.
Pensacola, Florida, April 2020. I chose this bird because I have this exact thing happening under my eaves in my out my front door, like as
It's
we
it's a
speak.
barn swallow.
It's in a barn, obviously. Yeah.
It's obvious. No. Well, it looks like it's nesting in a house.
It is, yeah, and it's a
Not a birdhouse,
finch.
but your house.
It's a finch because it's got that big, thick, triangular bill, and it
Yeah.
is a house finch. And this is a very common thing. They love that little notch above the columns in houses. Like I have had one nest in my house in this exact same spot for about the last 4 years now. But one of the things that you can notice when you're looking at nests is one of the things that the house finch does is that they kind of poop off the side of the nest, and so their nests tend to have this ring of dried bird poop around it, as you can see in this. That's a very house finch thing.
Yeah, and the other bird that might build a nest in a similar circumstance that has a bill like that would be house sparrow,
Hmm.
and the nest is totally different. They usually nest in cavities, but I mean, they will build occasionally more of a weaver bird like nest. But you'll notice that this bird is very, very plain. It doesn't. House sparrow tends to show a supercilium. I mean, the male house sparrow is easy. Female, and you see the streaks on the underside, which a house sparrow would not show.
Yeah, well, so Ralph Yoder has another question in the comments here. Thank you for asking questions to us. We'd love to take those questions if you have them. He asked, 2 years ago in Battle Creek, Michigan, he saw a line of thousands of small raptors flying north in the fall. Why were they flying north? Weather reports from the south were normal. I would say, you know, birds will generally go north or south based on the season. So this is fall, so they're generally going south, but that doesn't mean they aren't going to kind of turn back and go the opposite direction if weather conditions suggest that they might do so. I mean, they're pretty good at figuring that sort of thing out and taking that stuff into account. What do you think, Greg? What's your answer to this question?
All I can say is reverse migration is a thing. I've seen it many, many, many times.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone truly understands it. One just sort of an anecdote based off a study of some cranes, sandhill cranes that were outfitted with GPS trackers. They stage in Indiana, in north central Indiana, and then make their way up to Wisconsin, and then kind of spread out. Some stay there, others continue on all the way up to Siberia, actually. But in that time when they're migrating, it was discovered that they go back and forth. That covering that 200 miles in a day for sandhill cranes is no big deal. And if the weather was warm or they just felt like it, they would fly from Indiana to Wisconsin. And then if the weather got nasty or it iced up, they'd turn around and fly back to Indiana and just kind of just puddle about and then, take off when it was for real.
Yeah, and I do have one question from Twitter. Actually, not Twitter, from Periscope, which apparently is separate from Twitter, which I did not know that, and I apologize for all those people who may have been trying to communicate with us on Periscope that I haven't been even noticing. But Matt Cartgolf asks, what are other ways to attract hummingbirds to my yard in a suburban area besides using feeders? And the answer that I would have to that is flowers. Plant lots of them, especially the tube ones that hummingbirds really like. Things like trumpet flowers. Yeah, you got some, Greg?
The two that will always get hummingbirds in my tiny little suburban yard are Monarda, Monarda, which is also called bee balm.
Bee balm.
Get the red.
Yeah,
get the red variety, and I put potted. They're red and yellow tropical flowers. They're really popular.
Maybe someone will comment.
It'll come to me.
You'll remember it at some point. But anything with like a long kind of tube, the hummingbirds are definitely going to be a big fan of. Like those trumpet creepers. Bee balm is like a classic hummingbird and pollinating insect flower. And the nice thing about having flowers instead of a hummingbird feeder is that you don't have to refill flowers. They're constantly there, and you don't have to do the work. You don't have to worry about cleaning your hummingbird feeder, making sure that the nectar, the liquid inside it is not cloudy or whatever. They'll just take care of that for you, which is the best way to do it. I'm far too lazy to have a hummingbird feeder. Latania, is that what it's called, Greg?
No.
Cardinal flowers.
No, that's a good one too.
Jewelweed. We got lots of suggestions coming up in
jewelweed, but that's
Facebook.
not. This is a common roadside plant in places like Costa Rica. That's sold in every Home Depot, every garden center, everywhere.
Wear your mask if you go get it.
I'll find it here.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll take a question from Kate Carr who asks, I had heard the term pishing recently, had no idea what it was.
Lantana.
Lantana. Oh, I think that's what Sheila Brown said, but she may have misspelled it. But yeah, Lantana or
Lantana,
or maybe Latania is, but I have no idea.
No,
Hibiscus, Lobelia. Don't plant. Robert Mulville says don't plant trumpet vine. It's invasive. My mistake. Sorry about that.
Although, but there is a native trumpet vine that or not trumpet vine. I'm sorry, honeysuckle. Never mind. Native honeysuckle that hummingbirds love. But lantana grows like crazy, and hummingbirds absolutely love it. And it flowers and flowers and flowers and flowers.
Yeah. So Kate Carr asked, she heard the term pishing. She had no idea what it was, so she wants to demonstrate how to do it. All right,
Yeah, I'm gonna go. You do that.
I'm game. I'll do it. All right. So pitching is is a kind of a mouth noise that birders can make to attract birds, and so the idea is that you are sort of mimicking the scolding calls of whatever is the common, bird in a feeding flock in North America. It works best in North America. It works a little bit in other places, but North America seems to be the place where it works because our sort of core group are chickadees and titmice who are constantly making these sort of scratchy noises that are relatively easy for people to imitate. And it works best it works best in fall and winter. It doesn't work super well in spring, though you can get some birds to be come in and have a look if you do it. So pitching is essentially exactly what it sounds. It's onomatopoetic. It's psh, 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 right? So if you want to be really good at it, what you want to do is try and listen to what the birds around you are saying, what noises they're making, and try and imitate that into your pitching. So that I've found that to be really efficient. So if you're listening to gnat catchers, you can make like a gnat catcher like bzz, 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 bzz. Or if you're listening to chickadees, you can do like a if you're listening to titmice, it's what do they do? They go psh, 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 psh. You want to try and imitate that sound. It's basically like, hey, there's something weird going on here, and it gets the birds kind of curious to come up, and they'll come a little bit closer and check it out. And once the chickadees and titmice get kind of worked up, a lot of other kind of quieter birds that might be hanging out in those flocks will come in too. So I hope that answers your question in a way that is not terribly embarrassing to me. Let's see. All right, so let's move to we're gonna do some raptors. We got some raptors lined up here, Greg. So this is one from San Antonio, Texas, April 9th. We just have a silhouette here, but this is an identifiable bird.
Yeah.
One that is definitely moving right now in the early spring. So what I'm looking at this bird, I'm looking at it's got a very slender body. It's got very long wings, kind of giving it a lanky appearance, and they've got that kind of classic hook, that kind of weird shape there on the forewing where the wrist is very prominent.
A lot of wrist.
Very wristy bird. And this is the one you're going to see. So, Greg, you saw that flying over. What would you yell?
Oh, osprey.
Osprey. Yeah, so this is an osprey. A lot of bird that is moving around right now. They migrate. They overwinter in the Amazon, as far south as the Amazon, and so birds that.
Yeah.
So there was a cool study done by Rob Beauregard, and he used to be at the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. But I don't know where he is now. I don't believe he's there anymore. But anyway, he did this cool study where he put essentially trackers on the backs of osprey that were nesting up in New England, so like in Massachusetts and New Hampshire, and basically gave them backpacks and tracked them throughout the entire year. And he found that these birds that are nesting up there, some of them kind of migrate south along the coast. Some of them just go straight out over the ocean and go straight to South America. But a lot of them end up in the Caribbean or even as far south as the Amazon, and they kind of tool around in the Amazon basin for a couple months, and then they start heading north. And they're hitting the United States. They've probably been here for about a month now, for the most part. Some of them overwinter, not a ton, but in Florida, especially in the south around the Gulf Coast. But if you see this kind of shadow above you with the big wrists and the long wings and the kind of skinny body, osprey, definitely a lot of them looking around.
And when you learn how they have a very unique way of flapping and presenting themselves in the air. When they really look very different, like a turkey vulture. There's only a couple of things that you can mistake a turkey vulture for. And osprey is the same way. It's like they're kind of unique.
Yeah. And this is a very backlit one, so you can't see the color, but I mean they're super pale underneath with some black markings on the wings. So if you get any sort of decent look at them in good light, they're pretty obvious as well. Excuse me. All right, so this one, we have one more question from Frank Lehman, kind of a depressing one, he says, but yeah, we'll take it. We'll take them all. Frank Lehman says this is a bit of a morbid question. Which endangered North American bird do you think birders should try to see now before it goes extinct or functionally impossible to locate in the wild? He suggests spotted rail or black rail. Those are two. Or spotted owl rather than spotted rail. Sorry, and black rail. Those are two that are not doing so well. I think black rail is one of those ones that We've never had a real good idea how many of them there are out there because they are so difficult to find. And they're one of those birds that may just kind of wink into nothingness without us really noticing. I think a lot of those kind of salt marsh obligate birds are in that way. I think sea level rise is going to be a real issue with them. Not just black rail, but salt marsh sparrow is another one that is probably on that list as well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, you could say, like lesser prairie chicken, but they're being, birds like that, game birds are being bred in captivity. We have greater prairie chickens here in Illinois, uh, but they're functionally extinct.
Yeah, the same way in Missouri where I grew up.
The birds are restocked every year, and if they were just left to be, there wouldn't be any in a year or two.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. That's a kind of a depressing topic, but yeah, that's true. And Lolita Rodriguez suggests Florida grasshopper sparrow as well. It is a subspecies, but it's still a unique subspecies, and yeah, that is one that has the extra. I don't know. It's not the what's the opposite of benefit? It's the extra problem of being a subspecies. So even birders are not always going to be super aware of the issues surrounding Florida grasshopper sparrow, because grasshopper sparrow is, a relatively common bird across much of the eastern part of the continent. But the Florida one is has some problems. A lot of Florida species are like that. All right. So I am going to share a bird here. This is against my better judgment. This was a bird that I just the other day made a wild yakking misidentification on it. So let's talk about how that happened. This is from San Antonio, Texas, April 8th, 20. No, this is not San Antonio, Texas. Where was this bird seen? Do you remember? It was from Maryland. I just copied and pasted the last one. It was in Maryland, which makes it even worse. San Antonio, Texas could be this. So I'll change that to Maryland. Yeah. I don't know exactly where, but it doesn't matter all that much. So I took one look at this bird, and I said broad-winged hawk. And then I was very quickly disabused of that notion by the birders of What's This Bird, the very sharp birders of What's This Bird. But I will tell you, I go by my gut a lot with these sort of identifications. And my gut, when I look at this bird, it's got a real petite build. It's kind of pale with those big teardrop streaks on the front. I thought broad-winged hawk, but it is not a broad-winged hawk, and you can tell me why.
And this
Greg.
is a game. Well, this is another really great fake out. When you glance at this, and again, we find ourselves looking at these things. We're kind of in a hurry, making a snap judgment. Yeah, we know these birds well enough, but this bird looks petite. It looks small. And that's typically broad-winged versus red-shouldered. Red-shouldered tends to look kind of lanky. Broad-winged tends to look kind of compact and petite.
Yeah.
Especially the legs. This bird looks like it has a very, very really thin
skinny
legs and small feet. Another thing is the secondaries are presenting themselves in such a way that they look dark, and it looks like we should be able to see markings if they're there. But a third thing is the two branches crossing like this towards the tip of the tail. It makes it's an illusion that makes the tip of the tail look like it has a broad dark band on it.
Yeah.
And all of that in a snap judgment, it's like, okay, bing, 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 those things fit for broadwing, move along.
Yep.
But then the observer showed a photo of it in flight, and it's an obvious red-shouldered hawk.
Yeah, and everyone makes mistakes, and I'll certainly take the hit on that one. And another thing that I should have recognized, obviously, is that this photo was taken in April 8th, 2020. So this bird was taken 2 days ago. There are no juvenile broad-winged hawks in North America, well, in Eastern Northern, in Maryland for sure, at this time of year. But the red-shouldereds have already gotten their chicks off the nest in a lot of places in the on the continent, and Yes, knowing status and distribution is the sort of thing that I should have picked out, and I will say that I totally botched this one. This one is, in fact, as many people in the comments have said, this is a red-shouldered hawk, not a broad-winged hawk.
Well, well, the as Pete Dunne so eloquently said, the difference between, and I'm paraphrasing this, but the difference between a beginning birder and an experienced birder is that the beginning birder has misidentified a few hundred birds. The experienced birder has misidentified thousands.
Yeah, and Kara Zambricki asked, what about juveniles from 2019? I think that they would be showing a little bit of adult plumage by now. What do you think, Greg? I'm not exactly sure. I don't see.
I think
they'd be further
they
along.
Could hold on.
Yeah,
they could hold on to some juvenile plumage. I mean, birds can do that. I mean, birds can hold on. I mean, yellow rump warblers are notorious for that.
Yeah.
Especially in the east, where you'll get in the middle of May a yellow rump warbler that looks like it was hatched 2 months ago or less, and it's from the previous year.
Yeah.
In places like Florida, you'll get these birds that they hang on to this juvenile plumage. So, I mean, yeah, it's possible that you could get a broad-winged hawk in April that looks like this.
Yeah. So Roger Hoffman has a question about, before we move on to our last image, are you noticing how much less anthropogenic noise, air traffic in general, there is with the current travel restrictions? He says listening and recording has been easier of late. That's an excellent point. I haven't heard a ton. I still live far too close to an airport to really notice that too much. But that I imagine that someone who records a lot, that is something that's going to be quite noticeable. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can hear, sitting in my yard, I can hear birds. I can hear things further away. There's not so many cars and other noises. I heard there's a train that's, I think, 4 miles to the south of me, and I could hear it.
Wow, do you not normally hear it?
No, there's too much other noise going on. I mean, it's just lost in the general rumble of everything else.
Yeah.
Sometimes late at night you can hear it when it's. But anyways, getting back to bird songs, it's been the most amazing thing. Has been the nights that we've had migrants moving overhead. You can hear them. You don't hear just the occasional loud one like a hermit thrush or something. You hear a lot of different chips and peeps and things that you couldn't hear over the city noise.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, I mean, this is, as we've said in many other places, this is a really frustrating time to be a birder. You can't really get out and do the sort of birding that you might want to do. A lot of the festivals that a lot of us enjoy going to and look forward to every year are not happening this year because of COVID-19. But there might be some silver linings, and it's always nice when you can appreciate that as well. Make us appreciate that stuff more when this is all over, I imagine. All right, so excuse me. We got one more picture. This is one that Greg sent me. This was in What's This Bird, and then was sent off to the Advanced Bird ID group that we talked about earlier. Greg, tell us about this bird from Essex, Vermont in April 2020.
So this is kind of like the last one, where the first impression of this bird is misleading, because I look at this bird and just it ticks off all my northern goshawk boxes right away. And there were a couple of other pictures that didn't really undo that. And in the discussion at the Advanced ID group, the discussion went back and forth, and some of the things about this bird that are highly suggestive of northern goshawk is that even in this photo, it's got a pretty noticeable supercilium. It doesn't have markings on the undertail coverts, but the markings do kind of drift down into the lower belly, and not all northern goshawks have markings on the undertail coverts. Most of them do, but not all of them. The tail looks kind of thick, and like I said, it checks off all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then in the course of discussion, Adam Sell, well, several people pointed out reasons why it is a Cooper's hawk. But Adam Sell very pointedly, very correctly pointed out one thing. He was a professional hawk watcher at Hawk Ridge for a few seasons. And he pointed out, just look at that waist. And that's something that Cooper's hawk looks, or goshawk looks like it has a brick coming out of the back end. It's just a thick like this. And Cooper's hawk almost, it looks like the tail, it's wasted and it moves. This bird has its undertail coverts a little bit flared out, which adds to the illusion of that thick
I
tail.
can see that.
But if you mentally discount that undertail floof, that is not a goshawk tail.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it too, and it look like it's got a full crop too.
Yeah,
almost a little bit.
Yeah, and making it look a little chunkier.
Little chunky, yeah. That's
It is and it's really neat if you go to the Advanced Bird ID group and read through the discussion there. Like I was saying earlier, it reads like a state rare bird committee would go and look, discuss a bird like this with opinions, and then bringing in evidence, and by the end of it, like, everybody's convinced. Even somebody like me, who I chimed in and said, oh boy, it ticks off all the boxes for goshawk for me. I'm like, after hearing more evidence, I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That's a Cooper's hawk.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. Birds can be humbling. If you're not getting humbled by birds on a regular basis, you're probably not birding right.
Birding is hard.
Yeah. It's easy and it's hard. So we get both. All right. So we do have a question about migrants, night flight migrants from Frank Lehman. What is the best time to go out and listen for those migrants overhead? I'm not very good at that sort of thing. I don't know a lot of that stuff, but you do it. What is the best time to go listen for migrants?
Well, I mean, you can hear them at almost any time after dark. Typically, in the hours before dawn, they're coming down. They're trying to stay together, so they tend to make a little more noise. But they're keeping together by call the whole time they're flying. But during the real middle of the night, they tend to get at their highest altitudes. So, the few hours before it starts to lighten up, and as soon as it starts to lighten up, I mean, they can see the horizon before you can. They're coming down.
Yeah, that's a great question. If anyone else
they do not want to be stuck up in the air.
No, because that's
they're
when the
very
vulnerable.
They're very vulnerable. Yeah.
Yeah. If anyone has any questions, please let us know on all our various social media whatnots. We'd be happy to take them. Otherwise, we're getting to about 50 minutes here, so we're probably going to think to wrap this up soon. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I believe that we're still doing the VBC membership thing. Is that right, Greg?
I have been so dug into website coding that I don't know. I came into this little talk here between you and me very unprepared.
Yeah. Let me ask David real quick. But anyway, please feel free to answer the questions.
While you're doing that, John Lowry points out, going back to the hummingbird discussion, when I remembered Lantana, and thanks to Jim Eager for pointing out Lantana while I was looking for it. Lantana is it's a tropical annual that cannot survive the winter, so there's no danger of it becoming invasive or spreading or taking over your yard.
Yeah. I recently took down my hummingbird feeder. I'm really kind of too lazy about keeping it up, unfortunately, and I don't have very many good trees in my area, in my immediate yard, to put them up, so I'm really the wrong person to ask about that.
Yeah, we have on our back, we have a little bungalow, and on the back windows we have 3 window boxes, and we just stuff them full of lantana and just let it go. And we
Yeah.
get butterflies. We get butterflies. We sit out at night and watch the moths come in. And um, lantana's a good one if you like nectar feeding things in your yard.
Kara Zambricki asks a difficult question that I'm going to tell you, Kara, we're probably going to punt on. But she asks, what are your thoughts on unethical birders in the field? Do you engage or look away?
Yeah, that's tough. Just use the same common sense you would seeing anybody doing anything unethical or whatever anywhere else.
Yeah.
That's such an almost it's an impossible question to answer, and there's no way that we or anybody could give guidelines or even guidance of any kind, because there's just so many variables, and potentially really bad variables.
Yeah, and I would suggest people to have a look at the ABA's Code of Birding Ethics, which is the thing that we do. We one of the things that the ABA is known for. We have a Code of Birding Ethics, which basically suggests good field manners, good things to do in the field to respect both birds that you're watching and the people that you are watching. So it would be a good thing to check out, and we try and pass that around as we try to pass that around as much as we can. And we have a new COVID. It's not technically an addition, but we have a
Yeah, it
little COVID
is.
announcement for it, for what to
It
do in right now because it's a
and it
difficult
actually
time to navigate.
it actually is a temporary addition to point three of the code of ethics, which is aba.org/ethics. Um, and lead by example. There's always people
Yep.
that are going to be jerks, and there's nothing you can do about it, really. So just lead by example and know that you're doing the right thing, and that's the way to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And I just got word from David that we're going to go ahead and turn on the code once more for those of you who enjoy these sorts of programs that we do and want to join the ABA. We do have a code. If you want to go to aba.org/join, it's right above my head, and enter VBC10. You get $10 off an ABA membership that applies to both regular memberships, family memberships. I don't know if student memberships are included, but definitely e-memberships as well. Go ahead and join up if you like. It definitely helps us out in this time where it's a difficult time for a lot of organizations and a lot of businesses, and we are no different. So if you want to join the ABA, if you've been on the fence for a while, now's the time to do it. Steve Ercoli mentioned stopped hitting the trails because they're full of dog and kid walkers. Yeah. No, I hear that. I went out maybe 10 days ago before this thing. Well, I mean, I don't remember. Time has slowed down. But I went out with my family to a trail that I had birded on before, and I thought that it was not a terribly busy place, and it ended up being a lot more people than I expected. It didn't help that it was a beautiful day. I don't know. People want to get out and enjoy the outdoors, and I can't necessarily tell them not to because that's sort of what we want to encourage as well. But definitely try and do so responsibly. That's what I would say. But yeah, and join the
Absolutely.
ABA with VBC10 code, and you can get $10 off.
Victor Boy, Carrot 10.
Victor Boy Carrot 10. That's right. After that, so let's see. Ralph Yoder asks, he lives adjacent to a 300-acre preserve, and his property is between with a wide utility. How could I find grasshopper sparrows? I've never seen their tunnels. What tree? I've never. Grasshopper sparrows. I'll tell you where I find grasshopper sparrows, and it is in old pastures that cows don't. The cows visit often enough to eat away all the trees that might grow up, but not often enough to keep the long grass from getting shorn down to the ground. Like thigh-high grass. Go out and listen for a grasshopper sparrow, that kind of insect little trill, and you may not always see them, but you'll definitely hear them.
And grasshopper sparrows love to sing from barbed wire fences.
Mm-hmm.
Drive along
Absolutely.
the roads. You see sparrow on the thing, just stop and get a look at it before you flush
Yep.
it as you drive by.
Absolutely. And what trees are used by sapsuckers? Do you mean feeding trees or nesting trees? I'll try and answer both. The sapsuckers that nest up in the Appalachians here in North Carolina like beech trees to nest in. or yellow birch, and same places that the chickadees go to. The black-capped chickadees, I should say, up in the high reaches of the Appalachians. I don't know what they do where you are, Greg.
Well, the feeding trees are they definitely like birch trees.
Mm-hmm.
And we have in the far northwest corner of Illinois kind of an interesting situation in two counties where the driftless part of Wisconsin just comes into Illinois. Yellow-bellied sapsucker is the most common breeding woodpecker, which you would
Really?
never think.
That's wild.
Yes,
Huh.
it is wild. It is wild. At least they're the most noticeable. You'll definitely see more yellow-bellied sapsuckers in late spring and summer than you will downies or harries or anything else. Maybe flickers, you'll see a couple more, but they definitely like the river birch and yellow birch.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as feeding, I see them feeding on. I see sapsucker wells on lots of different kinds of trees, but a lot of them on cedar trees. They like cedar trees quite a bit, and anything that oozes sap, pine trees, loblolly pines down here. I don't. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that they'll feed on. Yeah. So let's see. What's I guess we. So I moved the. It's over. I can't tuck them backwards. This way. The VBC 10 is over under Greg now. If you want to join, go to ava.org/join.
Oh, hello there.
It's right below you, right on your pen. Magnolias, Suzanne Wagner mentions magnolias. Great as well. Yeah. Anyway, we're gonna call it a day. We'll see you back here next week, and we are so come back here 1:00 ish. What's this bird? Also on Twitter at ABA and on YouTube, American Birding Association. Have a look, and we'll be coming at you live again. We'll see you then. See you, Greg.
Bird your yards.
Bird your yards. Stay home. Stay safe.
Bye.